on this country right now, some of which I don't have to feel, and God willing will never feel in my life. The feeling of my child being taken from me after I've survived 2,000 miles, a lot of that on foot, some of it on top of a train, fleeing a place. And I can only imagine what would cause us to scoop up Ulysses, our 11-year-old, and Molly, his sister, and their younger brother Henry, and leave our hometown of El Paso and travel 2,000 miles, go into a strange land, to be strangers in it, because that's the only place that we can go. Things would have to be really bad. And in Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador right now, it's hard to imagine them being any worse. They're in some cases the deadliest places on the face of the planet today. There are kids right now, as we're here, who are in Tornillo, in a tent encampment that was built the weekend after the president announced that 100% of those moms and those dads who left with their little kids, 4 months old, 5 years old, 10 years old, to come to this country, would be arrested, their children would be taken from them, the parents would be prosecuted like common criminals. Hundreds, maybe more now, have been deported back to those countries they fled from in the first place. And those kids tonight in Tornillo don't know when, don't know if they'll ever see that mom who risked everything for them ever again. We've been in El Paso at Annunciation House, one of these amazing Catholic charities that is facilitating the reunifications of these kids. And I'll tell you, and many of you already know this, the harm that we're doing even after they've come together is lasting. This is cruelty, this is torture. We saw a 7-year-old girl who just saw her mother for the first time in more than 2 months. And her expression was vacant. There was nothing there. And not being a psychologist, not knowing really what I'm talking about, but having seen that, all I can imagine is that she has already been as hurt, badly as a human can be hurt. And there's some mechanism that springs up that defends her from being hurt that way again. That person, you know, that she loves more than anything in the world, who was taken from her. Maybe that person who delivered her to a situation that has been the worst that she's known, she's not connecting again. And there are hundreds of kids right now in that same situation. Many of you know and applied pressure on this government. Perhaps some came down to El Paso actually, when we went out to Tornillo that first weekend, to bear witness and to share with our fellow Americans what was going on. That's part of what gives me hope, because in under 24 hours notice, more than 1,000 people from every single part of Texas and points beyond came down to El Paso. And I'm confident that pressure, at least momentarily, helped the administration to stop taking families, to stop taking kids and separating families. That pressure, if it continues from us, can make sure that every single one of those kids is reunited with their parents. And that not only do we stop doing this as a country and never do it again, but that Texas, the most diverse state in the country, El Paso, the city I represent, a quarter of those I serve in Congress, born in another country, chose us, came here, left their family, left their home, left their city, left their culture, left their language, left their country, and chose us. One of the reasons that El Paso, Texas is one of, if not the safest cities in the United States of America. We have been for 20 years straight. In other words, not in spite of, but because we are a city of immigrants. Austin, San Antonio, so much of Texas can tell a similar story. This is a pride of place that we should use to lead the national conversation on something that we know better than anyone else. So, in other words, in short, stop the bad shit. Walls, separating families, Muslim bans, press as the enemy of the people, destroying our institutions as we watch. But also make sure that we're all running for something that we want to replace that with. If it's not walls, if it's not separating families, if it's not making dreamers, more than 1 million in this country, 200,000 in Texas, live under the fear of deportation back to a country they really have never known, then it's got to be dreamers as U.S. citizens today, so that they're contributing with everything they've got to the continued success of this country, in economic life, in civic life, in democratic life, the things that they're going to do, in addition to the things that they're already doing today. There's no stopping us. And to do that not at the price of deporting their parents or building this wall or militarizing the border, but ensuring that families that want to be together can unite here in the country. People who want to do work that no one else is doing or that no one else is qualified to do, that they find a home here in Austin or in El Paso or in the United States of America. If immigration is a problem, it's the best possible problem for us to have. That's what to me is so thrilling and exciting despite this darkness. We'll be in a place like Booker, Texas, tip top of the Panhandle, as red and Republican as it gets. They're talking about immigration in that community. They're talking about dreamers, because a salutatorian from Booker High School just got deported back to his country of origin. They all care about that young man. They all also know they paid their property taxes, so he gets a world-class public school education, has books to check out from the library, has soccer fields to play on, and after making that investment in his life and their shared future, he's somewhere where he doesn't speak the language, doesn't have family, doesn't have connections, and if he's successful against those long odds, he's successful that place, not for the people of Booker. Because, as a campaign, all of us, we've decided that no one will be written off and no one will be taken for granted. We're going everywhere. We're going to the most Republican places on the planet. Abilene, Texas. It glows so red you can see it from outer space. We just held our fourth or fifth town hall in Abilene, Texas over the last 18 months. And the first time, I don't know, 20, 30, 40 people came out. The next time, a few more. Last week, we were at the Paramount Theater in Abilene, Texas, and almost 800 people came out on a work day. Republicans, a lot of them. Democrats too, but just people. And we never ask party identification. We never ask anyone to RSVP. We never screen a question. All are welcomed. We're all going to need to come together if we're going to meet the challenges, if we're going to be the ambitious, aspirational people that I know us to be. The meanness, the pettiness, the paranoia, the hatred, the outright racism that defines so much of the national conversation today. I feel like Texas should be the answer to that. We are bold, we are confident, we are big-hearted. We're going to do the big things. We're going to put the small stuff, our differences, and those things that would otherwise divide us away. And we're going to get after the work of this country. Now that could be immigration, it could be universal health care, which they wouldn't see coming from us as the least insured state in the country today. Where the #1 provider of mental health care services in Texas is the county jail system in Texas. I can't tell you how many people I've met who have a close family member who got arrested on purpose because that's the only place, the county jail, their schizophrenia, their bipolar disorder, their depression will be treated. I cannot tell you, and I don't want to tell you how many people I've met who have a family member who's taken their own life because they don't have insurance, they cannot afford that surgery, they feel like they're a burden on their families, they have a mental health care condition that cannot be treated, they're suffering, it is so bad that they take themselves out. We could lead on that. And we know that not only is it the right thing to do, not only is it the just thing to do, it's the fiscally responsible thing to do. $60 a day to the Travis County taxpayer to incarcerate someone in the county jail for bipolar. $14.50 a day to provide outpatient mental health care services to the Travis County taxpayer. The Koch brothers just funded a study on how bad Medicare for All was going to be for this country. Unwittingly, that study produced results that showed it would save this country trillions of dollars over the long term. We can claim the mantle of being the fiscally responsible candidate while we are there for one another. No $2 trillion tax cuts to the wealthiest and to corporations. Investing in universal all-day pre-K so every kid has an even start line from which to compete. Universal health care, bringing immigrants out of the shadows, reforming a criminal justice system that has produced the largest prison population on the face of the planet, disproportionately brown and black, a new Jim Crow that has kept people out of economic life, out of their democracy, out of civic life. Unjust, cruel, and again, it costs you $22,000 a year to keep someone locked up. Imagine the potential locked up in that person. What they can do when they raise their family, work that job, pay their taxes, shoulder their fair share of the burden because they are free enough to do it. Not only are these issues the most urgent I can think of, not only is this our moment of truth, not only are we doing this in the best way I know how, going everywhere, listening to everyone, inviting all into this campaign. but it's also the right way to win. With your help, we have not taken a dime from a political action committee or a special interest or a corporation over the duration of this campaign. And while it feels good, it also happens to be really powerful. And we didn't know what was going to happen when we made this decision more than a year and a half ago. I had friends in Congress who said, so hold on a second, you're taking on Ted Cruz in a state that has not elected a Democrat to the Senate in 30 years. Yeah. In a state that is elected an El Paso in a statewide office in never. and you don't want to accept PAC money, you're going to leave millions of dollars on the table. This went from being really tough to impossible. In the last 3 months, Ted Cruz has raised more than $4 million from PACs, from those donors he cultivated in his run for the presidency all over the country. He's already started to run attack ads. We may have taken a principled position on criminal justice reform, said we need to end the prohibition on marijuana, need to expunge the arrest records of those who've been arrested and served time for a crime that is legal in 29 states in this country, because we know that arrest record prevents you from getting hired, prevents you from getting a student loan. His first ad, with the money that he raised, you may not have known this, Beto O'Rourke wants to legalize heroin. Just warning you guys, you may not have written your checks. So this politics of fear, I'm going to scare you about the other guy. I'm not going to describe our ambition, our goals, the things that we want to reach together, that we can only reach together. I'm going to scare you about the other guy. That's what's going on. We're used to it. It invites the cynicism that describes so much of political life in America today. To that 4 million, together, without PACs, all of us raised $10.4 million. Average contribution, which I'm loath to tell you because I would love for you to write that, is $33. 215,714 separate donations over 1 3-month period. Most of that from Texas. And so at a time, you've never had greater concentration of power and privilege and wealth, where corporations are calling the shots and members of Congress are singing their tune in the legislation that they have purchased. Texas is also an answer to how we get our democracy back, returning power to people. You all are part of that here today. I'm grateful for your help. I promise you, we will make the most of this. And if you're willing, in addition, and if you're not already doing this, to knock on doors, to make phone calls, I tell you what, it will make the difference. In this very digital age, in this deeply divided country, to have someone take the time to knock on your door and have a human being to human being conversation. There's nothing more powerful right now than that. It's not for the faint of heart. It can be awkward. It's definitely unguarded. You don't know where it's going to go. But this moment is not for the faint of heart. And if we each want to celebrate a victory on the 6th of November, and not a single one of us wants to wake up on the 7th wondering what more we could have done, given the stakes, given what's going on in this country, given this country that we love, it's time that we put it all on the table right now. So thank you for being here. Thank you for getting behind us. Thank you for being part of this campaign. Thank you for hosting us.